Good evening, and I'll call the steering committee meeting to order. At this time, I'd like to call on the Vice Chair, Brad Turner, for the reading and approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I've had a chance to review those minutes. I find them in order, and I make a motion for their approval.
Second. Motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. We do have a brief meeting, and then after our brief agenda, we will have a discussion with our state delegation, and we would introduce those gentlemen here in just a little bit. But at this time, we would like to announce a vacancy on the Conservation Board, which is the seat of Mr. John Marshall. And at this time, we need to fill 2 vacancies on the Correctional Work Center Board. We do have 2 applications, and I think that they are both currently sit on that board, Mr. Tom Hartley and Mr. Virgil Gammon. We have 2 applicants and 2 seats available, so at this time, I will ask for a motion.
By acclamation or forward them to the full commission for appointment.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Hartley, Mr. Gammon, we really appreciate your service to our county, and we look forward to seeing you at the next county commission meeting.
He withdrew.
Next, we need to fill a vacancy on the Equalization Board. We have 2 applications at this time, Mr. John Barbie and Mr. Trevor Johnson. 1 seat and 2 applications. So at this time, we would ask Mr. Barbie if he would like to address the steering committee. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, my name is John Barbie. I have served on this board as I'm currently an alternate on the board and would like to move up to the full board. So that's my reason for applying. I have a number of years of experience working with valuing property, both as an employee and assessor and as a fee appraiser also. So I feel like this gives me an opportunity to give back to a community that's been good to me. I would appreciate your support.
Are there any questions for Mr. Barbie? Thank you, Mr. Barbie. And is Mr. Travis Johnson in the audience?
Mr. Commissioner. I too am applying for the position to fill the vacancy of the Equalization Board. I've been a Rutherford County resident for 10 years. I too am a property appraiser, owned my own business in the county for the past 10 years. So I got a lot of experience assessing properties and dealing with individuals, homeowners, things like that. So I feel like with the experience I have doing that, it would lend to the board, and I would like the opportunity to fill that position.
Currently an alternate on the beer board?
Yeah, I am currently an alternate on the beer board, yes, so we do have another position.
Are there any questions for Mr. Johnson? Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we nominate both and vote for one.
Motion and second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Mr. Barbie.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner P,
Barbie.
Commissioner Phillips,
Barbie.
Mr. Barbie.
Thank you, Mr. Barbie. Your name will be submitted to the full county commission. Also, this brings open an alternative seat on the it'd be appropriate for us to maybe make a decision now if the Johnson is interested in that. This opens up I guess an alternate seat.
Announce it,
And we will announce that opening. And we have a resolution to update our Purchasing Private Act, and I'll call on Mayor Burgess. Ms. Nolan? Okay. Nolan?
And speaking with the county attorney's office, because there was some old language throughout the document, they decided to go ahead and just redo the private act related to purchasing. There are changes in there, references to the county judge or county executive, those being changed to county mayor. Also in the first section, I'm just going to kind of briefly go over it. I don't know how I get you to this particular page. One was the bond of the county mayor as purchasing agent. In the old one, it was at $10,000. The purchasing agent is currently at $100,000 anyway, so this reflects that change. There is a section that, I don't know how to get y'all to it because it's not numbered. So let me do it this way. 1, 2, 3. Probably the 4th page. And it starts with the word neither. It's at the bottom of the page. It says neither the purchasing committee nor any official, department head, or any other agent or employee that engages in or participates in any phase of the purchasing process established herein by the rules or regulations of the county purchasing committee shall be financially interested. There is some more language to make sure it covers everybody who touches the purchasing aspect, that there is no conflict. State statutes, conflict of interest laws already have that in there. We just brought that into to this. Okay, it's the last paragraph of section 1. There was a change to that that this purchasing act does not apply to already the highway and schools. Let's see, where is that? Wait, I might be on the wrong one. Oh, yeah, it's that one. Not to apply to the community care board. In the previous one, it was the poorhouse board. So we've cleaned up that language. And also in this paragraph, we've got pulled from state statutes that allows us to purchase from nonprofit corporations such as local government data processing, whose purpose is to provide goods and services specifically to counties. And that is in TCA, and we just brought that in to the private.
That again. That again.
It's Local Government Data Processing Corporation is in existence for municipalities, utility districts, and counties. And they're specifically in the state statutes that you can purchase from them without bidding the process, because it's specifically to, I mean, that's who they are there for. Section 2 is the 100,000. 3 was just some language cleanup. Let's see, I think 4 is the same. Number 5, in section 5, that there's a change there that in our old private act, in the old one, or the current one, this is the one, if you remember, had a reference that if any official, agent, or employee who fails to, I'm reading from the old, refuse to perform the duties required of him of this act, there was reference, shall be guilty of a misdemeanor or subject to a fine of not more than $50 and removal from office. So there was a question whether or not we had the authority to charge somebody with a misdemeanor through a private act. So that is cleaned up as well. And so that reference is out. And again, in Section 5, it's brought in everybody who touches purchasing again. So any official named in this act, any official department head, or any other agent or employee that engages in or who participates in any phase of the purchasing process established herein. Now, previously, I mean, all that language is similar to the other one. But at the end, where we had "and removal from office," we've changed that to say may be subject to removal from office by ouster proceeding or terminated from employment, as the case may be. So that takes in consideration, again, the employees that participate in the purchasing process.
Lisa, have you got along those lines, because I've got some questions on that one.
On 5, okay?
Well, you know, when we were looking at Sheriff Arnold's case under the Ethics Committee, we looked at some of the other acts, and the consequences for some of the things that had happened at that time under other private acts was termination or removal from office. If this was in place now, or was in place when those acts happened, could Sheriff Arnold have been removed from office? Zach?
The way we've got this language here, he would still, elected officials, constitutional officers would still have to be removed from office through an ouster proceeding. The people that would be terminated are all other people that might have been engaged in doing something inappropriately, such as a department head or any other official that has participated and did something improper.
But if your question is, I mean, to me, we're saying the same thing, we're just clarifying. Because in the old way, in the way that it is now, it says, "and removal from office." So, I mean, so we're just saying removal from office by ouster. I think that's the only way that you could remove an official is from ouster. So I think we're really not adding anything, we're just clarifying.
Well, like I said, during the Ethics Committee meeting, we were looking at some of the other acts that were out there, and it looked like, and maybe y'all can clarify that for me, that under some of those other acts, that you actually could be removed from office as a consequence of some of the things that happened.
Are you speaking to the other two purchasing
Right.
laws on the books?
There are 2 or 3 others that other counties may have adopted.
Now, in answer to your original question, I don't know.
We don't think so. I mean, our attorney has sort of reviewed this.
Well,
and this.
we had asked, and at steering, we had asked for us, to y'all to bring that back to us sometime. I thought that's what this was when I saw it. I wanted clarification because we asked for something more stringent, if possible, as far as consequences go. If you were found, say, entering a contract without going through the county commission, under some of those other private acts, the way I read them, and like again, you may correct me if I'm mistaken. Under some of those other private acts, it looked to me like you could be removed from office for that as a consequence of entering into a contract with an agency without approval of the county commission.
One difference that might be significant, those other acts you're talking about are general statutes that are available. This is a private act, and I don't know that this private act can do something that a general law can do.
Well, that was my question. I was wanting to put some teeth into it, if we can, and, we ever, God forbid, have another situation like this come up, something like this wouldn't have to drag out. We could take care of it.
Basically, this would only be, the way this reads, this would only be applicable to someone like a department head, like the codes department or something of that nature. Yeah, right.
Right. And I say even down to the person who is responsible. It might not be the department head. It might be somebody down below who is really taking care of the purchasing for that department.
Basically, it'd be someone other than an elected official. Okay, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, that to me, it covers everybody. But then, again, conflict of interest statutes covers everybody too.
Any further questions? Yes, please.
Ms. Nolan, who acts as the purchasing agent in the incapacity of the county mayor? This was a suggestion that was brought up to me earlier this afternoon, so I thought I would ask. I would recommend that we put a section in there that clarifies that if the mayor's incapacitated or unavailable for 30 days or more, that maybe the vice chairman of the purchasing committee can become the purchasing agent for the county until the mayor is back.
That's not a bad idea.
We can certainly add that. That's what you wish, yes.
What about the deputy mayor?
Deputy to the
Deputy
mayor,
mayor.
who's day to day?
The deputy mayor,
Deputy to the mayor.
person is quote an employee, whereas it, which might be more appropriate for, well, you need someone that might be here every day and
Because it is work every day that's going through there.
person that's doing all these things.
So is that an amendment that we could put into this motion?
You can get with Josh and Nick and have them craft the language to add that between now and next week.
Commissioner Stevens, would you like to make that amendment?
For the deputy mayor, that's fine.
Okay, there's an amendment. Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
Oh, Robert Stevens. Any further questions on the amendment?
Yes, just a comment here. One of the other Ethics Committee members brought back to my attention, she happened to have her notes when I don't, but TCA 5-14-101, County Purchasing Law of 1957, and also TCA 521-101, the 1981 Financial Management Act. There's more control, it's more restrictive than our county ethics policy. Now, I don't have a problem going ahead and passing what we've got up here today, but I still want to see if we can put more teeth into somebody that's in violation, whether they be appointed or elected. But if you wouldn't mind looking into those two, and I'll give you this note, so when we meet time, if it'd be all right with the chairman, we could put that up to discuss.
If the teeth had to do with fines, is that the piece?
The fines and
Right, I mean,
the termination, the ouster.
I'm going to go back to information that our county attorney prepared just on that part, because I think if it's the part about the ouster, I think we've got that written in the proposal. But as far as fines and things, just reminding 57 and 81 really has to do with, there's a lot of changes, but a lot of it, who does it cover? 81 covers the county, schools, and highway. 57 excludes the Board of Education, and it also makes change to totally how the setup of the purchasing department is set up. I mean, that to me is big changes between all three.
Well, I'm not advocating that we change our private act to reflect more like those. What I am advocating that the consequences for breaking the law have more teeth in them in our private act. And I think that's something we could probably do. Our legislators probably tell us here in a few minutes, because I'm sure this is going to come back up.
There is something that Nick kind of referenced as far as fines, that, because it talks about, I'm going to get into an area that I'm not the lawyer, but let me see, where is that? That was 5. To make sure that, what did I just read that today. Okay. It has to do to avoid potential equal protection challenges where the different statutes, like what you just referenced, 57 and 81, 57 subjects persons to a Class D felony. And while other counties do not have such offense due to not opting into the 57 law. Let's see, there was, the court examined whether the conflict of interest provisions of the county purchasing law of 1957 were constitutional. The state law makes it a Class D felony to violate the law's conflict of interest provisions. The court found that the criminal offense provision was unconstitutional because other option laws like county purchasing law of 83 and the county financial management of 81 either made such violation a misdemeanor or no crime at all. So the court concluded that it violated equal protection laws by allowing some counties to opt into 57 and subject to the Class D felony, while other counties do not have the offense due to opting out of 57. So all that relates to the charging of fines. So I will just touch back with Nick and say, is there anything in these other things that you could do other than, I mean, because like I said, it's already in there now as far as removal from office or termination of employment.
Olive?
In your motion, do you want there to be a time frame on if the mayor is incapacitated?
Commissioner Stevens, did your amendment put a time frame on how long the mayor would be incapacitated before the deputy mayor would have that authority?
Let's make it 30 days because every day there are questions that someone has to answer.
Okay.
Producing all these purchase orders and so.
Well, what if the mayor was at a meeting that he was required to be at in Nashville, and we had a purchasing order that came through? Could we not have, just like a vice chairman steps in when you're out, could we not have this designated person, whether it's deputy mayor or vice chairman, step in for you if you were absent for a day? I mean, I don't see that you'd have to be incapacitated for that to be a problem at times.
Could, again, I'm not the law, is there any place, could you say the county mayor or his designee? Or is that too open?
Actually, I'd rather you just say the county mayor or, in his absence, the finance director. Because if I have a question, she's the one that has to help me find an answer.
Prudent.
Commissioner Stevens, is that okay to put in your motion the way you work as far as the finance director?
I mean, I guess that works for me, but that doesn't answer his question about if they have to be absent or not. Or how do you define if somebody's absent?
Well, if he's not available that day, to me, he would be absent. Whether it's sickness for a day or a month or out of town on another meeting or whatever.
Most all of these things are not emergencies and they can stand a few days for the mayor not being there.
That's what my question was going to be. Has an emergency ever arisen like that since you've been here? Like, that you've been out of pocket, that something had to come up that had to be answered right then and there on a purchasing order or something of that nature?
Back around out of the office, I'm used to all the time here on the routine. So if I'm incapacitated or ill, otherwise I'm available, and I think that's one of the results.
Becky, would you read the amendment, make sure?
Is there a bus? The vice chair would take over the purchasing committee meeting.
Yes, that's taken care of.
Okay.
Absence, the finance director will act as the purchasing agent.
We haven't voted on the amendments yet, so the amendment basically just says that there would be in the absence of the mayor, it'd be the county finance director.
There was
Well-
never a motion on the floor, though.
Pardon?
There was never a motion on the floor for the amendment, so I was just gonna say we could approve it as it is with that change. That's my motion.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Commissioner Johnson?
Johnson? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes as amended. Thank you, Lisa. At this time, I would like to welcome to the courthouse our delegation, Representative Don White, Representative Brian Terry, Representative-elect Tim Rudd, Representative Mike Sparks, and Senator Jim Tracy and Bill Ketron. We have quite a few commissioners here in the audience, so how we will proceed is each commissioner on the committee will have an opportunity to engage a question and dialogue about whatever topics on their mind. When the committee has finished their questions, we will go to the audience and have commissioners who are interested in asking a question to, obviously the mayor also, to feel free to ask those questions. I will start off with a question, and I will preface this by saying I am not for or against the use of medical marijuana to treat chronic pain, because I really don't know enough about it. But I've heard talk that the General Assembly may be looking at some options there. My concern would be the way other states have done it. You bump your knee on the table and you got your prescription. And with Tennessee being one of the worst states as far as the most opioid prescription, that's kind of concerning to me. So what is coming this year, do you think, to the legislator about the medical marijuana, and what safeguards, if it does come, that you would see could be put in place? Just flick the button.
You got it. Thank Chairman Gooch and members of the steering committee and other commissioners. Thank you for allowing us as the delegation to speak to you all tonight. I always look forward to this time of year so we can communicate before we start. We start back next Tuesday with the opening of the first year of the 110th General Assembly, which will be a 2-year term. Specific to your question, Mr. Chairman, I believe, from what I've heard, I haven't seen any language on any bill that's been presented. Newspaper reports have indicated that Chairman Faison and the House Representatives and Senator Dickerson from Belmead, Bellevue area in West Nashville is proposing to bring a bill on medical marijuana. I supported the first bill that came dealing with the THC oils for those children who had seizures. And it was under strict controls through a medical doctor issuing that. I haven't seen the language. I don't know what controls will be put in place as far as their language of the bill is concerned. I do have concern of the slippery slope, if you will, that is created once you approve medical marijuana. How do you disprove that the person doesn't need it? We have a lot of doctor shopping, and doctors are writing opiate prescriptions like you spoke of, and we're facing that real dilemma. We are ranked one of the highest in the country with abuse of opiates. And what's to keep us from sliding on further a year or two from now? I know there's a lot of lobbyists who are already lining up, a lot of wealthy people who are lining up, hoping that it will slide on down to where they can be the first retailer or the first 20 growers to be like Colorado and to be like Washington State and others. I have a real concern about that because we're just now beginning to see some of the effects of marijuana in Colorado. Loss of production, work production, number of incidents of vehicle accidents, etc. I'm just, if it's going to pass, which I probably will not support, it's going to have some pretty strong restrictions as far as it being medical marijuana.
Thank you. Hey. Bye. Thank you.
I guess not. Okay. Again, thanks so much for having us. Our heart lies here in Rutherford County. We all want what's best for Rutherford County. And so thank you again for putting this together. I always enjoy hearing your concerns and what is important to the County Commission as we represent everyone in Rutherford County. I will echo what Senator Ketron says. There has not been a bill filed. We have not read a bill. I do not know what the bill says. Senator Dickerson and Representative Faison had a press conference. My understanding is after the press conference, a lot of parties involved have gotten together and the bill may look totally different than what was in the press conference. So I have great concerns. We were in Nevada 3 weeks ago now, and there's billboards on the side of the road. Need a medical marijuana card, can be improved within 24 hours. Call this number. That is basically a pain clinic. And we're spending millions upon millions now in Tennessee trying to fight that. And so I have great concerns. How are we going to control medical marijuana? As someone that is parent choice, I believe in parent choice all the way. I want to have the option for some parent that has a child with seizures. We as a government can't tell what's best to medicate their child, but it has to be regulated and strictly regulated at that. And, with cancer patients, if that's the only thing that helps you keep solid foods down, how am I as a legislator supposed to tell them different? But I have great concerns because what we have seen with pain clinics here in Tennessee. So I will read the bill, but like Senator Ketchum said, it's going to have to be so controlled for me to ever vote for anything like that.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having this and having this forum so we can discuss issues in front of the camera for our constituents. As far as the medical marijuana issue goes, I think a lot of people conflate the issue between recreational smoking and the chemicals that are actually in the plant, the different cannabidiols. The CBD oil for seizures does not have the psychotropic effects that THC does. Currently in Tennessee and all 50 states, there's Marinol, which is a synthetic THC that is legal. So whatever bill does come forward, I think that from a diagnosis standpoint, from what modalities that they put forth, whether when you smoke marijuana, it's upwards of 80% or more within that are carcinogenic to the lungs, whereas if you inhale just the CBD or the THC, you don't get that carcinogenic effect of the smoke. So there's, to me, it's going to be what they bring forth, what controls are there. From a medical standpoint, we can't prescribe THC. We can't prescribe marijuana. Their original press conference had recommendations, and I think that from a medical standpoint, there may be pushback on even just recommending it because it's a Schedule I drug from the FDA. So I don't know that from a physician standpoint there's going to be much as far as even recommending that. Now, as far as a diagnosis, you said bumping your knee or something like that. That may be something that they put in the bill. With the ICD-10 codes that we have now that got expanded with Obamacare. It may be something that they put in there where you have to have this specific code, and then for a specific amount of time, as long as you have that code, you could get access to the chemicals, but I don't know. But we'll see what the bill comes forward.
Hello. I want to thank all of you, too, for holding this after the holidays and giving us plenty of notice. I want to appear before as many boards as I can, so I thank you for hosting this. I'm the rookie here, so I've still got to find out. But as far as I know, maybe there's a provision against that. But if the growth and selling of marijuana is against federal law, regardless of whether the Justice Department's enforcing that law, and I couldn't knowingly vote for legislation that's against federal law unless that that federal law was blatantly against the Constitution. So I would probably say that no, I could not support the bill. I hadn't seen it yet, but I would say if it is against federal law, I couldn't support it.
Commissioner Gooch, it's I studied for all these issues, but I wasn't anticipating medical marijuana, so I don't even have no notes on none of this stuff. But anyways, yeah, I got to be wearing my glasses now. You know, it's an interesting conversation. Tennessee suffers from an opioid epidemic. We've got a drug epidemic, as y'all know. I've fought this issue as hard as I can for the past 8, 12 years, probably. It's interesting. I've got a younger brother that's a federal agent that's combating this stuff every day, and he's totally against medical marijuana. It come through committee about on the House side, which I happened to be on the Health Committee at that time, and it made it through subcommittee. I was shocked that it made through subcommittee. He didn't have the votes. The chairman just let it go, and it went to the full committee. Then it got killed. But I asked my stepfather one day, and I don't think my stepfather, who sadly is in a nursing home suffering with dementia, he's 88 years old. He was a state investigator for the Department of, for the Board of Pharmacy for 25 years. And I asked him one day, and he opened the first Walgreens in 1955 in Green Hills. And he told me, I said, Bill, what's your thoughts on medical marijuana? And he's strong, conservative. I just thought he was going to say, oh, this is terrible, blah, blah, blah. He said, I don't have a problem with it. And I was shocked. He said, I don't have a problem. He said, I remember dispensing it back in the 70s. I was like, wow. And I wasn't anticipating that answer. When I see the problems we see in our culture, the prescription drugs are where the problems are. I don't see it as bad with marijuana. I talked to Chairman Faison today, just happened to be near his office, and we talked about this bill. And I just told him, I said, I don't know where I'm at on your bill. I want to just keep an open mind like I do on every issue. But I think anytime you elevate the conversation and we're talking about the drug problem is good. We're talking about addiction. We're talking about treatment is good. It's helpful for everybody. You know, I just don't see the problems with marijuana like I do alcohol and that I do with prescription drugs. I see prescription drugs and alcohol destroying lives. I don't see people going out here and committing murders that's smoking marijuana. I see them on drugs and alcohol doing that. I don't see it with marijuana. Now, is it a gateway drug? I don't know. I called a detective friend of mine 2 years ago, and I just started calling people, you know, much like I do some of y'all. What's your thoughts on this issue? And this detective said, you need to just legalize it. I called a pharmacist in Smyrna. So what's your thoughts? They said, legalize it. I was shocked. So the discussion, there's a pulse out there for medical marijuana. There's no doubt. I don't know where I'm at on it. I'm going to keep an open mind like I do every other issue. But I think anytime you're elevating the discussion to talk about addiction and treatment is healthy for us as a culture. I don't think he has the votes for it, and I told him I don't think he has the votes to get it passed. But like Representative White said, I haven't seen the bill, so I don't know all the details with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. At this time, I would like to call on Commissioner Phillips for his question.
Thank you, Chairman Gooch. I don't exactly know how to word this. I'd like to kind of address Senator Tracy as chairman of the Transportation Committee. There's been a lot of print as it relates to the gasoline tax coming up. And every year maybe it's me, but we ask for your help as it relates to alternative revenues. It seems that we're building $85 million courthouses and $54 million high schools, and our school system is growing by in the neighborhood of 4% a year, 2,000 kids a year, up to 2,000 kids a year, which means more than one school every year that we're building. And the only alternative we have, the reasonable alternative we have, relates to property taxes. So if we don't have alternative revenues, then we're relying on property taxes 100% of the time. And without your help in creating revenues other than property taxes, you're helping us raise those property taxes all the time. So what I've heard about the gasoline tax is that, I'm not sure, Jim, but I think is it like 25% of that comes to the counties, and where does that stand? And what do you think will be introduced this year, if anything, and what would be the benefit for us as Rutherford County if it did pass?
Yeah, Commissioner, thank you for that question. It's where we fund our roads in Tennessee, we're really the envy of the country. We have no debt on our roads. And let me tell you how it works, particularly for you as county commissioners. 21.4 cents per gallon each one of us pay when we fill up, and that goes to state gas taxes. The county will receive, out of that 21.4 cents, the counties are going to receive 5.44 cents of that 21. And that's just on the gasoline. On the diesel, it's 18.4 cents per gallon for the diesel tax, and the counties are going to receive 1.62 cents of that. So, that's the cities receive that. The counties are going to receive about 3.24 cents of the diesel. So that's how you fund your county roads in Tennessee. We haven't looked at any funding mechanisms changing how we fund our roads in Tennessee since 1989. So the cost of building roads today, when you talk about building roads, whether it's a county road, a city road, or a state road, it's a four-phase process. You have an engineering process, you have the environmental process, then you have buying the right-of-way, and then you've got the construction phase. So it's a four-phase. All phases of those have gone up, as you well know, and you can talk to your road superintendent here in Rutherford County. The cost to build a road 10 years ago in the county and my counties that I've talked to is about $35,000 per mile. Today, it's about $100,000 per mile to build a road. With the growth that's happening in Rutherford County, you cannot build roads fast enough. With the jobs that are coming into the area, you got to have the infrastructure to get the jobs in, and you got to have good roads to move the product in and out. So that's the challenges we got today. We're not going to, I don't see us, Commissioner, borrowing money to build roads. I don't think that's fiscally smart. I don't think we should do that. So we are at a crossroads. I think we're getting to a point. I will tell you, we have a dedicated tax in Tennessee where all the money goes into roads, to building roads and bridges. That 21.4 cents per gallon, that 18.4 cents per gallon on diesel goes directly into a fund, and it is separate from the general fund. Back in 2007, under a prior administration, they borrowed money out of the road fund to balance the budget when we were in a recession. Last year, we paid off half of that, which was $143 million. This year, the governor's told me that we will pay off the rest of it, so we'll pay that off. But it is a dedicated fund, particularly used for roads. The biggest challenge that we have here in Rutherford County and across the state, cars are more fuel efficient today than they were 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So we've got more cars on the road, but they're more fuel efficient, so therefore the revenue is flat. You can look at the revenue here in Rutherford County. Even with the growth of Rutherford County, the growth of the revenue is very small compared to the growth. So that's the challenge we are. The governor said we need to look at a funding program. I haven't seen a plan yet. I've asked TDOT to give us a long-term plan, but roads are a very important part of where we are in Tennessee. So I do look for us to do some kind of funding program. I don't see any other way to do it other than it's a dedicated use tax. I'll use this and I'll let you follow up with questions. A good example, my dad is 86 years old. He travels about 1,000, 2,000 miles a year. That's it. So he's spending a lot less on gasoline taxes than I am traveling 35,000 to 40,000 a year. So that's where we are. The Trucking Association is all for improving and paying more because they know the importance of having good quality roads.
Thank you, Jim. Just you mentioned user tax. I think that there is a surplus, and I'm as conservative as most folks, and I like to have that surplus. And I know that there have been rainy days, and I know there's probably rainy days in our future, and I'd like to see that surplus used for things that we need them for next year, year after year after. But if we use a lot of those surplus funds, I'm looking at to help us build some of our new roads. And you mentioned housing. I serve on the Regional Planning Commission and have for over 20 years, and we're looking at a growth that started back to the way it was pre-2008, and some of those places that we're going to be building, we're going to have to improve those roads, and somebody's got to pay for that. And I'm struggling trying to figure out where some of these funds are coming from, and that's the reason that I brought it up, is because I think a user tax would be as friendly to most citizens in Rutherford County than a property tax increase, if we're going to have to do that to improve or build some of our roads.
And you bring out a good point. I do think we will use some of the surplus funds we got, but it would be very similar as using your savings account to pay your house payment. Surplus is going to be good this year, but that's one-time money. Those of us up here that are in the legislature, we have to balance our budget just like y'all do at the county level. We have to balance our budget every year. And we can use some of the surplus money, and I think we will use some of it for transportation, but that's a short-term Band-Aid fix. Long-term, we're going to have to, with the growth that's going on in Tennessee, we've got to continue to fund our roads. And we can't continue to count on the federal government to do it. We're going to have to do it for ourselves. And that's, being the chairman of that committee, I've been looking at the last 3 years. So I think we're going to have to do something.
Thank you. I'd just like to congratulate all of our legislators for being here tonight. It's an honor to have you represent us in Nashville. I think Commissioner Sparks, I said Commissioner Sparks, I mean Representative Sparks. That goes back a long way, Mike, I guess. But I believe it was 6 years ago you were new, and then 4 years ago maybe Miss White was new, and then 2 years ago maybe Dr. Terry was new, and now we've got another new one in Tim Rudd. And Tim, I'd like to congratulate you on your victory and look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Were you saying I'm old?
I'm saying we're old.
Pre-middle-aged.
Absolutely. Well, it was a pleasure serving with several of you back in the 90s. So for those who is affected by that, take it in the right light. To follow up on Senator Tracy's comments of the $142 million out of the $261 million that was taken during the Bredesen administration, I feel like and agree with the governor has told me, just like he's told Senator Tracy, that we are going to replenish that. Now, there's a caveat from my perspective. I want to see that money not go back into the general fund of TDOT. I want to see it be split and given, like we did last year, and give it back to the local governments. Right off the top, before we get into any excess monies that we have, recurring, non-recurring, let's just take that off the top, that 120 some odd million, and give it back to the local governments. The recurring, we've been blessed in Tennessee with our sales tax, our F&E tax that continues to accumulate. Sometimes it makes it a tougher challenge when you do have excess money than when you don't. Trying to figure out where you're going to spend it, and so we'll be wrangling. We might need to wear some wrestling gear between now and the time we get out in April, because it's hard for everybody has an idea of where that money needs to go. Of course, rainy day fund will take a large chunk in that because, like you say, Commissioner Phillips, assuredly there's harder times down the road at some point in time. Now, with the election of Mr. Trump, I think has promised America's infrastructure first in his, I don't know if he'll do in the first 100 days, but he wants to put money into transportation. We don't know how much, and hopefully we might be able to hear something from his administration before we leave in April and set the final budget before we leave. That could be a big asset and help to us. But we have to do something about the traffic. It's just out of control. I'm driving it every day. When I go to Nashville, what used to take 30 minutes now takes sometimes 2 hours if there's one fender bender. And it's going to get to the point where we're just going to be in gridlock. And people will quit coming here because they can't get around. They can't get from point A to point B. Commissioner McAdoo, what it used to take for us to drive from Jackson Heights to Mercury Plaza, it used to be about 10 minutes, and now it's 30, 45 minutes if you're lucky. You know, sometimes you'll sit through 3 or 4 traffic lights at one intersection. So we have to do something, and prioritize and working with the city, I think, is going to be very important, like Highway 99, like Jefferson Pike, like Bradyville Pike. Those are some of our key areas that we have to focus on and trying to get those things widened, even Thompson Lane with the bridge going out to 231. Those are on our radar. We'll continue to work and try to make sure that we scream the loudest. The greasy wheel gets the grease, or the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and I think you have one of the best delegations in the state of Tennessee that can squeak the loudest. So we're going to be down there representing you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Commissioner McAdoo, do you have a question or like to address the delegation?
Yes, I do. Since we're talking about sales tax and tax monies, this is one I've been looking at, and I think it's coming up this year. This is online sales tax. I think that's a big key. You know, I hope we try to pursue that, because a person that's running a business in a retail store is getting hit. It's getting hit with paying this overhead and everything. Then you have people that deals online that's getting by without paying anything. And I think that we really do need to look at that online sales tax this term. So can one of you talk about what we're looking at this year?
I do know that the governor's bringing that piece of legislation. That'll be part of his package. And you know, we were fortunate when Amazon brought their fulfillment center here, that they agreed after 2 years that they would start paying that. Many times when I order online anymore, I pay the tax in that local state. I think that since we're a sales tax driven state, that's our biggest form of revenue, then I think we definitely have to look at it. There's a whole lot of people out there that don't like it. So when it comes down to the pressure of some of our members, they'll buckle to that pressure. But there comes a point in time where you have to be strong and stand up and do the right thing.
And you pointed out right, it's about fairness. And if you're running a business with brick and mortar, you're paying. If they're coming in, I'll give you an example. We have a legislator, and I won't mention his name, who owns a tire company. They come in his tire company and they'll look around and they'll find a set of tires that fits their car. They'll order the tires online so they don't have to pay the sales tax. They'll get the tires at home delivered. Guess what? They bring them to the tire shop for him to balance them and put them on the car and you know, install them on the car. And, you know, so it comes about fairness. And if you're going to run a store, you're running a store and you're paying employees and you're paying your sales tax and you're doing those things. So at the end of the day, the governor's going to move forward with it. I know it got out of the Government Operations Committee the other day to move forward. So I think that's going to be addressed, Commissioner.
With the online sales tax, of course, I was a former business owner and had an online business. And of course, everyone that I shipped to in the state of Tennessee, I paid sales tax on their order. I shipped it to the state of Tennessee because I was located here. Every quarter we send in our sales tax just like any other store here in Murfreesboro, Smyrna, Laverne. I have concern because, of course, the Supreme Court has said until Congress does something, there's nothing that can be done. And I encourage all of you to go watch the Government Ops Committee in December. And our Attorney General basically stood up there and said, and I'm paraphrasing and you need to go watch it, but said, well, we'll just be the test case. And that gives me great concern that we're going to be tied up years and years in a lawsuit the state of Tennessee is going to be. Again, you know, the Supreme Court has ruled, and I just don't see us getting involved in those lawsuits and the money be tied up and held.
I'd like to echo what Representative White said today. I had a meeting today actually with Governor Haslam. That issue did get brought up, and the concern about potential lawsuit and whether or not the money that was raised might just have to be set aside in case of that. If you spend it and then all of a sudden you lose a lawsuit, now all of a sudden you're dipping into rainy day or something along those lines. So, but it's going to be discussed and it will be looked at this session.
Turner? Thank you, Chairman Gooch. And again, I want to thank the delegation for attending. I was actually sitting here looking at Senator Ketron, and I thought about Dr. Terry. And one thing I wanted to cover, you mentioned first, was certainly, at least from the commission perspective, but I know from the delegation and others, that our thoughts and prayers go out to Commissioner Jernigan, who lost his wife. And if he's watching, we want him to know that we are certainly praying for him, and we agree with him in his loss. But the reason I brought that up was I've had a few constituents reach out to me that knew we were going to be meeting with our delegation and said, would you mind relaying this for me? And so I tried to take some notes to do that. But the reason I brought that up, mentioning Senator Ketron and Dr. Terry, that I think sometimes in government we catch ourselves saying, well, we'll do that next year. Well, with health scares and things like that, you don't always know if there's going to be a next year. And so I'm glad to see both of you here, and I'm glad that your health seems to be moving in the right direction. But I'm tying that in with, I think there's a lot of things that are very important that we can't always wait till next year to get to that. And I'm going to defer to Commissioner Allen. I know that as the chairman of our Health and Education Committee, she's got a lot of questions about the BEP funding, and I know Senator Tracy wants to address that. But just a couple things that I wanted to bring up that were shared to me by our constituents that they asked that our delegation at least consider supporting at the state level if it's something that's not getting done at the national level. And I'm going to read a couple of those. One of them was the reciprocity for carry permits. I know that there's a big movement right now, and in my opinion, rightfully so, it should happen, related to reciprocity with all 50 states just having a national carry permit for carry permit holders. I'd like to encourage you to reach out to our Attorney General, whoever needs to do that on our end, for states that have carry permits that we do not have an agreement with. A lot of our people we mentioned are on the roads and they travel, and they have to check before they go to see what states recognize Tennessee carry permits, myself included. So that was one thing that a couple of constituents reached out to me and encourage you to make sure that there's a way to continue to strengthen our Second Amendment rights as it relates to reciprocity with other states. Please do that. Another one that obviously is very important to us is attacks on law enforcement officers that seem to be happening with way too much frequency. And are there any types of mandatory state penalties that we can improve as it relates to attacks, whether a death on a police officer, firefighter, any one of our public safety officers, related to improved mandatory sentences that you never know if they're going to change situations from happening, but at least it lets them know, obviously we support them, but it gives it a little bit of teeth behind that for those who do attack law enforcement officers or people that are doing their best to provide a public safety element to our citizens. What can we do to help protect them and strengthen those laws if they are attacked or killed or something like that? One other thing, I know Senator Ketron has shared this before related to human trafficking and problems that Tennessee has with sex traffickers and human traffickers, continuing to make sure that we strengthen those laws that we have on the books and looking for new laws that we might need to continue to push that and let people know that we're taking that very seriously. I work with several young ladies in my office, and that was something just out of the blue today that they brought up about being concerned about with how big Nashville's getting and some of those problems that they have in Nashville. And one of them mentioned, and I didn't have a chance to look at that before I left, that in Nashville, unless you're family, you can't rent with more than 4 people in an apartment or a townhouse because of some of the concerns they've had related to how that might involve trafficking. So just continue to encourage you to keep pushing for strong laws on that as well. But the one that I wanted to touch on, if I could, was pro-life measures and things that are generally discussed on a national level that we hear about a lot. It's very important to me that Tennessee continues and our delegation continues to be as strongly pro-life as they can be. For the life of me, I don't understand why we have so many people that are so adamant trying to justify ways that we can continue to kill unborn children instead of finding ways to save them. And I want our delegation to maybe explain to me, are there any things that are coming up, any bills, any legislations coming up? We've seen what's happened recently with Ohio, with Governor Kasich signing in one abortion bill, but another one he said I was concerned, Representative White mentioned lawsuits, that he was concerned about the heartbeat bill, bringing in some lawsuits and having some challenges there, whether or not that would stand legally. It's very important for me that we just stand for those that can't speak for themselves. And so are there any plans right now or any bills or anything that we might be interested in, at least me personally, but also individuals in our county that's very important to, related to how Tennessee is going to continue to try to lead the way as far as being a very pro-life state? And I will turn that over to anyone in the delegation that feels that they can address that. Thank you.
I hope your answer is not as long as the question.
Yes, I certainly apologize for that, but I wanted to make sure everybody was clear.
Commissioner Turner, I'm not aware of any bills per se, but I'll share something. My pastor of the day, Pastor Dan Parker at Parkway Baptist, they're trying, his granddaughter, they're trying to adopt a child, and it's very lengthy, it's very difficult. And I just made the comment to him. I said, isn't it ironic that it takes so long to adopt a child, and all these hurdles and all this expense, but then somebody can go terminate a pregnancy like that and terminate a life? I just, our culture is often strange. It's hard to legislate morality. It's hard to legislate people to do what's right. We can't legislate and incarcerate a way out of problems. And I often see, legislators, none of these guys or gals, but it's like they want to invent a bill to solve a problem. A lot of times I think the legislature is the last place you want to go to solve a problem. The community, the churches be more involved. I've seen the moral compass just when I was up here, I guess, 14 years ago, I've seen the culture change, and it's really changed since my late father was around. It's sad because all these things have a cost to them, whether it's addiction, incarceration, whether it's the fatherless. All these things come back full circle to us. I'm not aware of any bills. Tennessee, as you know, we're very pro-life, no doubt. If I see any bills or hear of any, I'll let you know. But as you know, this state is very pro-life, no doubt.
Being new, I don't know of any legislation, but I certainly would support any pro-life legislation that was sound and solid. I'll tell you one problem. I've noticed this as a citizen over the last few years, what the legislature has been through. Some of the pro-life organizations that you would think would support life or any legislation has actually been actively killing legislation they view as controversial. And I think the legislature, as long as it's a good, sound bill that's been tested in other states, I would support that, though, regardless of what any other organization's stand is.
Go ahead, Senator.
I'll just briefly comment on that. I think all of us up here in this delegation are pro-life. I've been a member of Tennessee Right to Life for 15 years. And whatever piece of legislation has come through this state, but I just have this feeling that the moral compass is changing. I saw on Facebook the other day where Ireland had passed some new laws protecting the rights of the unborn, which I always thought that Ireland was a little more liberal than the United States. So maybe the pendulum is beginning to come back. It went too far, and I think maybe we saw that during this election. Now it may be coming back the other direction. So hopefully in favor of those unborn.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson, do you have a question?
Yes, I've got a statement and a question too. First of all, I'd like to say ditto for all the accolades that have been given to y'all for being here, and thank you for your service and everything. One thing Senator Tracy was talking about a while ago about the gasoline tax, etc. Rutherford County is very fortunate with the 976 point something miles of roads that we're responsible for. I've been on the road board for 16 years, and we continue to operate with more or equivalent in our ending fund balance for the highway department than our operating budget is. But we have the privilege, I guess, if there's any such things as fair tax, is the wheel tax. Okay, it's one of the lowest ones in the state, and a lot of the states have what is known as an ad valorem tax, the value of your vehicle. So some people are paying $500 and $600 and $700 for their license plate. So it's been a couple of years, I guess, since I've checked on this, but the last count I had, well over 200,000 registered vehicles in Rutherford County, and 30% of that wheel tax goes to the operation of the highway department, and 40% goes to the schools and 30% to the general fund. And the highway department operates on less than a penny on your property tax for the public works department. So that's the statement that we're blessed in Rutherford County having some of the best roads in the state. And the question that I have is the jail out here is an albatross as far as money to operate, et cetera. The increase, is there anything in the increase as far as the state funds that are for keeping state prisoners? Because I know the last count I had, the formula or whatever the payment was less than what it costs to keep the prisoners out there. So are you familiar with anything to address that situation?
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. I will say sometimes I get in trouble for quoting numbers, as I did this past week with the governor. So I'm not going to say anything until he comes out with his State of the State address. But I think you'll see in his budget, and you'll be very pleased. For the first time in many, many years, you're going to see an increase in the inmate per inmate per day increase. He asked me the other day what I thought. We were heading out to a funeral, and I was right behind him, and he said, "What do you think we ought to increase?" And I said, $40, you know, and take it up to $40, and he about choked. But I think you'll be happy with his recommendation, and I'm sure because that's going to come from some of the recurring dollars that we have on hand. So we're going to share that back with the counties.
Thank you.
Yes, the governor and the legislature realize it is a problem. Of course, in 2013, it was raised to $37 a day, and that does not cover the cost at all. I believe probably it's around, $49 a day or something like that. So, you know, we realize it's a problem. The governor's looking at it in his budget, and hopefully it will be somewhat addressed this year.
Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson, I was just going to say, you know, Dr. Terry and I were in a meeting with the governor, and I had asked him that specifically, and I asked him how much it'd be, and he didn't have a figure. Going back to your roads real quick, I want to thank the road board. Weekly Lane, which anybody ever travels Weekly Lane, I know Commissioner Stevens does, and probably some others. It's a lot of crosses out there, a lot of deaths on that road. My in-laws live out there, my old church is out there, and Greg Brooks done a great job with paving that. Y'all may remember there was a fatality about 3 years ago. Some kids rolled a vehicle. One of them was lost his life there, and he even widened the curbs there, lowered the speed limit a little bit. Right now, you know, the bridge is taking a little bit. Folks have asked about the bridge. It's taking a while. Hopefully that bridge will be done in the next month or two, we're hoping. But I do want to compliment the folks on the road board, and y'all probably don't get a lot of accolades, but Greg and the road board, seriously, y'all have done a great job, very attentive. Thank you.
Commissioner Stevens?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a couple of questions. The first one is about Motlow State Community College. Their third facility there is supposedly the #1 project on the Tennessee Higher Education Commission's list of to-dos. And I was going to ask if this delegation is going to support getting that funded this year so that we can get that building open as soon as possible.
I believe it's going to be in the budget. $28 million, new building.
My follow-up question to that is there any way or any plan in the future to require the state to fund 100% of the capital projects for community colleges and universities instead of passing 10% of that on to the community somehow?
I'm sure there's a way. If you think of that way, please share that with us. That's a good point, Commissioner. But I had received a phone call from Mike Krause, who is now the director of Tennessee Higher Education Committee. He called me sometime in between Thanksgiving and Christmas and told me, congratulations, you got $5 million coming for the new mechatronics program in Smyrna. And then he called me back a week later, and that was after I had already gotten a phone call from the News Journal talking about that. And he said, I made a mistake and I really owe you. He said, that's actually going to the Motlow School in McMinnville. He said, but I can promise you, you got the $28 million coming for the new building in Smyrna. So that's where that came from.
Well, I appreciate that. That's a very critical project for many reasons. And I don't see Commissioner Baum here tonight, but he made an excellent point at one of our meetings recently that when the county builds a new high school, we don't get to send 10% of that cost to the state to fund it. But when a community college or a university wants to build a new facility, 10% of that cost ends up being raised by the local community somehow. And so I think that's an issue that needs to be addressed in the future. But I do appreciate the support for the community college. It's a great thing for Smyrna.
Yeah, I want to thank Commissioner Allen and Commissioner Stevens both for y'all's support over at Motlow. Many of y'all know Bob Spivey passed away last year, and Bob Spivey had the vision to bring that college to Smyrna. And I can remember him telling me as a younger guy that he was going to do this and bring his college in Smyrna, and I used to think he just was smoking something. I didn't believe him, and he made it happen. So I appreciate that being part of his legacy. You know, we're all in this together, and you know, I've been over and taken some class at that college, and I've seen them students come in there working till 2 in the morning. Some of them have children and struggling. So the governor, I think you may have said it best. One of y'all said it, senators. Every governor wants to be the education governor. Well, I think Governor Haslam has been the education governor. The new Nissan TCAT, $40 million, largest single investment in town of Smyrna, opened this morning. They still have enrollment. If folks want to go and pull them up on the web, it's tcatmurfreesboro.edu. Motlow, the $147 million science building. Sometimes I get upset with the budget. We were just talking about that before we got started. That, you know, I didn't get a little budget request I wanted for the food bank. I was a little upset, but then I thought of all the good things that Rutherford County's got. Motlow College, science building, largest investment in the state of Tennessee, the new $40 million TCAT. And I thought about it, and I thought I need to be happy with what we've got. And I still want to get that budget request. Maybe you guys can help me with that food bank this year. But I appreciate the commission's support, appreciate the mayor's support with Motlow College. It really means a lot. It means a lot to your folks, and it means a lot to my folks, and it is the fastest growing college in the state of Tennessee.
Thank you. And I had one more question. Of course, recently we've been embroiled with all the controversy involving our sheriff. And a couple of months ago, the commission passed some resolutions for ethics bills that we would like for you to consider. The first one of those is that if someone is indicted with a felony charge, that either a city council or county commission could vote by 2/3 to suspend that person from acting as the office holder while their legal controversy is pending. And then if they're ultimately acquitted or the charges are dropped, then they would be reinstated with the pay they would have received for serving during that time. And of course, if they're found guilty or plead guilty, then they would be out of office. So I definitely wanted to ask everybody to support that bill. That would have been such a great thing for us to have. We would not have near the problems that we have today had we been able to do something very simple like that. And the other one was a provision to allow the citizens to petition for a recall election of any elected official. And when it came out of our committee, it was for any reason. And at some point along the way, it changed to if the person was under a felony indictment. But that's another tool that we could use with our citizens if there's an issue and the legislature won't do anything about the problem, that the citizens could petition and call for a recall election and try to take care of the issue themselves. So those resolutions should have already been sent to you, but if not, hopefully they'll get to you soon, and we hope that you will all support that and help local governments all across the state when ethical issues like this arise, because they will happen again. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and local people need as much control over their officials as possible.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. Commissioner P.
Well, I do have, excuse me, a couple of questions. First, and Bill, you touched on this earlier. One of the big things my constituents asked me about is when are we going to do something about traffic? And I know when I was running for election last time, one of the questions they asked is, what do you see as a problem in the future? And I said then, traffic. And, you know, we need to do something. I want to know if there are any concrete plans out there right now or anything that we can look forward to, and I can tell my folks, hey, here's something that's going to happen. You know, any of y'all or that want to jump on that, it's fine. Do you want me to ask my second question now or wait till the answer on this one? Okay, the second.
However you want to approach it.
The second thing that people have come to me in concerns about is the vouchers that are being proposed to go across the state. And I know a lot of that's been voted down the last couple of times because there's a lot of questions. But one thing that I want to let you know about what my constituents are telling me is they don't want tax dollars going to private education entities. And the reason being is, you know, I personally don't want to educate someone in a religion that I disagree with. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that may disagree with the way I want to worship and wouldn't want to pay to have my children educated under that religion. And to me, that's what it is. We're taking money away from our public education system, which here in Rutherford County, we've got a darn good education system. And I think we're hurting it when we allow vouchers to come in. Now, in some specific places, yes, but I've done a lot of reading on this, and everywhere I see the vouchers, sometimes when they take place, you'll see a jump in the education for a year, maybe two, and then they're, as a rule, they're lower than what the public education system is putting out. So I would urge y'all to, you know, be very careful about using vouchers. You know, the thing that concerns me too, and I do a lot of homework on this kind of stuff, so I look and I see where you get your money when you're running for re-election, just like I do. You know, we all fill out our ethics forms, and, you know, those of you that are taking money from pro-voucher PACs, you know, it's out there. So, I mean, I know who is, who isn't, but I would urge you to please consider that, you know, and I'm speaking not just for myself, but for constituents that are saying to me the same thing. But again, want to go back, please let me know about the vouchers and also about the mass transit or whatever we may have in place. Thank you.
Commissioner P., I'll talk about the transportation, mass transportation. I mean, right now, some of the priority projects in Rutherford County, as Senator Ketron already talked on, Jefferson Pike being one, Highway 99 being another. We could list about 8 or 9 projects that are very important to Rutherford County, and those are all in the plan. And hopefully in the next couple of years we'll have some funding for Highway 99. Jefferson Pike really needs it, and Jefferson Pike is a large project if you go all the way from Las Casas all the way to Smyrna. So it's like a 3-phase project, but it's already in the plan. We've talked about it. So those are all in the plan. Mass transit is also in the plan. We're looking long-term for that, how we're going to fund it. And it all comes back, Commissioner P., to how much money we got and where we concentrate our money and where we prioritize our money. Those are all important issues. We're all traveling around Rutherford County, and the traffic is tremendous from whatever part of Rutherford County you are, and so those are all key. So I wanted to address the transportation. It is on the plan, and we're looking forward to see where we are. One of the things that I would ask each one of y'all to do as a county commission, maybe Commissioner P., you could lead this charge, is sort of prioritize the projects that y'all think from 1 to 20. What the most important project is in Rutherford County down to the 20th project. That way you can turn that over to us as legislators, and we can push those projects in the order that you want to push it, because there's never enough money to pay for all of them, but prioritize those projects so we can get those done.
Before one other of you jump in there, one thing I want to say is I really appreciate what y'all been doing. You know, having been here for a number of years, I realize the money that the state's giving this county. You know, I remember back when, Manchester had 5 exit and we had 1. You know, we've changed that drastically in the last few years. But more of what I'm looking for, I don't want to concentrate on just one particular area in the county. I mean, if you go out 231, it's a nightmare. If you come up Broad Street, it's a nightmare. If you come down 99, it's a nightmare. If you come up 96, there's nowhere coming into the spokes that lead into Murfreesboro, out of basically the heart of Rutherford County and down Lowry Street in Smyrna, that you don't have people waiting. But to me, you know, the answer that's going to be mass transit, some type. And that's more basically what I'm looking for, you know, as far as, yeah, we need this road here, and, you know, Jefferson Pike, you know, that's one that we've been talking about since I've been up here, and I know, Bill, you were probably talking about it before we got up here with my dad and them, but, you know, we've got to get a master plan in play, and I really realize the money y'all given us, and I appreciate it, but thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner P., for those comments. I know your mayor, Mayor Burgess, has been very involved meeting with the Mayor's Caucus here in Middle Tennessee. I've attended several meetings with him. It's definitely an issue that is being talked about, in my opinion, and compared to what Metro's talking about, what Steve Bland's talking about with in Metro. The corridors that we're looking at in Middle Tennessee, I-24, of course, is the busiest corridor in the state of Tennessee. From the 32 miles from Murfreesboro to Nashville is the busiest. Next is 65 from Franklin in. Then it's a toss-up between Lebanon, of course, has the Star and really doesn't have the same issues coming in on the interstate. Sometimes I go that way if there's a wreck on 24. But it's a toss-up between Clarksville and then Sumner County coming in from Hendersonville. So I'm going to continue to be the cheerleader and saying whatever money comes from mass transit needs to start here first, whatever that plan may be. In my opinion, we have 3 options. One is bus on shoulders, which is probably the cheapest. And do we want to spend money on bus on shoulders? I just don't think people are going to ride a bus. That's just my personal opinion, no matter what those other folks have talked about and recommended. It's going to take somebody higher than my pay grade, probably the governor, as they did in Maryland and in Massachusetts. The governor had to get involved with CSX and said, we want to share that rail that you have going. We have a rail that CSX goes, and of course they've been in my office 3 times. They don't want to discuss any type of mass transit on their rail. So we do have some folks that are checking into whether or not their right-of-way is large enough to put another rail right beside the current rail. You can get those fairly close together. And of course, what I've been proposing for a long period of time is monorail down the middle of the interstate. We have to elevate it. We can't go down because of the limestone topography. It's cost prohibitive, so it's much cheaper and I think faster to build that type of system, of a monorail type system. That too is expensive, $2.3 billion. I think it can probably be done cheaper than from what TDOT says. However, I did introduce, and my colleagues helped support this past year, the bill on P3. P3 is a public-private partnership that we passed. We're one of the first states that have passed that in quite some time. So it's now in place that's available for us to use. When the private sector approaches us, hopefully for an unsolicited bid, and Turner Townsend, Skanska, some of the other mass transit companies that are doing this globally, if they approach us and say we want to enter into a partnership over a 40 or 50 year period, we're interested in doing that. Let's face it, on large projects like that, government can't continue paying 100% of mass transit type facilities. So that's why the Golden Gate Bridge was a P3. Back during its time, the Transcontinental Railroad was a P3. And so this year, I've already got the bill drafted that will allow for TDOT or the state of Tennessee to set up the structure for a P3 office in the event, and we won't have to wait another year to go back through the General Assembly and set up the structure to have the money come in through that P3 office to set up that type. I know it's slow. I'm not sure we're going to be able to keep up with as the numbers continue to pour into our county borders. But we have to do something. We just can't wait another 10 years without having some type of mass transit going to and from. I know Siemens has approached me. They're very much interested because they play in that realm with switching terminals and et cetera. Got a meeting set up with the governor. They're flying in. The president of North America for Siemens is coming in this next month. We're going to talk about their interest there. From Siemens, and they're also interested in the mechatronics program for M-Tissue and Motlow from that perspective. So we're on top of it and moving as fast as we can, and I'm going to kind of take my lead from the Mayor's Caucus, which trying to get Mayor Burgess to step up and be chairman this next year, but he's shaking his head. No, he just likes to come and participate, but he's done a great job representing Rutherford County. Vouchers, let me say something very quickly about vouchers. I think when Senator Tracy and Representative Bryant were able to speak to the school boards, joint school boards, or other delegation members were unable to attend, but that was a hot topic between charter schools and vouchers. I think all three of us agreed that Rutherford County is not in that position probably to go statewide. I believe that the school board should be able to determine its own destiny, both in the city and the county. But from the standpoint of Memphis, I agree with some of my colleagues down there. Senator Tate, he talks about if a parent, just because of where they live, and their child is stuck in the inner city of downtown Memphis, they want a voucher to hopefully get their child to go to another school outside of that district and be able to use that. To private school, I'm not sure about that, but the public charters, I think, should still be under the control of like KIPP. I think Senator Tracy and we visited that school in Nashville. It's very well run. They had to get permission and have oversight from the school district from that perspective. I don't think as good as what our two school systems are right now that we have anything to worry about. Now, if they start failing and grades start going down, then parents are going to come to us, you and us, and say, give us this opportunity. But I don't see that happening in Rutherford County or Murfreesboro School District at this time or probably the next 10 years. We're just doing very well. But I can see the point of my colleagues down in Shelby County from that voucher standpoint.
I am for charter schools, have been. They're semi-government operated anyway, or government operated, but vouchers, I've been labeled in the press as pro-voucher. I'm not pro-voucher. I never have an opinion of it one way or another. I would be willing to try a voucher system that was proposed in Memphis as an experiment. We all have to be open to all ideas. Especially in counties where they have massive problems in education. I'm willing to try something. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. At least we tried it. We no matter what side you're on the education debate, you have to be open to new ideas. If you're not, you're just hurting the children. And I'm not here to support the school system. I'm here to support the children. And which means support the school system, but I'm willing to try an experiment there. I'm pro-charter schools, have been ever since I've been around politics for 30 years, but one pro-charter school organization just spent $140,000 trying to defeat me. But so that doesn't make any difference there. But on highways, Senator Ketron explained to me, I think it was 2 years ago, his proposal for the private government partnership of mass transit, and I think that's a good idea. We need to look at that definitely. Also, I just got back from Texas for Christmas with my relatives down there, and Texas has a fabulous road system. They also have a huge debt that they haven't have the gas tax that we do to pay for it, but they down there, and I certainly would never propose this, I want to make that plain, for existing roads, but In Texas, they have a lot of private toll roads where the government is also a partner. I guess they provide part of the space and utilities, and the private company operates it, and they share certain revenues with the state. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but that's on new roads. I think the problem Tennessee's got on projects like that is we don't have a large enough population to justify the risk for some organizations, I would imagine. Like the Dallas-Fort Worth area is I think right at 6 million people. That's right what our state population is. So it's would be a lot easier to attract private investment in things like that when you have a larger population. But I've noticed one thing, whether you're Dallas with all the roads and the toll roads, or you're Nashville where they've widened it from 2 lanes to 5 and 6 lanes, traffic's still backed up. I don't think there's no gas tax and no amount of money in the world on as far as our road system that can alleviate traffic with the rate we're growing. It just isn't possible. If we spent $2 or $3 or $4 or $5 billion on all of our local and state roads, I think 10 years from now you're going to have them backed up. That's just growth. But mass transit is certainly one way to eliminate it. I think Senator Ketron was also right. Selling it on the people here, when you go to Philadelphia and Baltimore and Washington and New York, where they're used to mass transit and been using it for 50 to 100 years, people aren't used to using it here. It's going to take a while. You can build it, but you can't make them come to the trough and drink it. So I think that's a huge problem in the South is getting people used to using mass transit. Thank you.
Again, we go back January the 10th, so no bills, and I really have not seen a bill if the vouchers are being introduced this year or not. Last year it was for the bottom 5%. That would include Shelby, Davidson, Knox, and Hamilton would be the ones in the bottom 5%. As a former teacher here in Murfreesboro City, I saw the wonderful schools we had. Rutherford County has the exact same wonderful schools, dedicated teachers. They give all, they spend extra money out of their pockets. They give to their students. They buy them supplies. They buy them Christmas presents. I saw that firsthand. But I also learned that no matter what situation a child is born into, no matter what their family looks like, where they live, are they homeless, do they live in a hotel, that everyone deserves the same amount of education. And luckily in Murfreesboro City and Rutherford County, they were able to get that. In these schools, there's a bottom 5%. They're at least 2 grade levels behind. We have got to try something. It is not fair just because you are born in Shelby County that you do not have the same opportunities as someone that's born here in Rutherford County and Murfreesboro City school system. And so yes, I am for the bottom 5% receiving vouchers because I don't see how we cannot be outraged that we are allowing our children to be at least 2 grade levels behind.
Thank you, Ms. White. Okay, at this time, we will go to the audience, and any commissioner in the audience will ask you to come up to a microphone at your desk. If you would like just to stand up and ask a question, and we'll just kind of get you as you're standing.
I appreciate you guys being here tonight. Commissioner Reed and Deputy Mayor Jeff Davis and I were at a meeting today at Middle Tennessee Electric talking about broadband. I think there's a bill coming to allow electric co-ops, which I'm a board member at Middle Tennessee Electric, I'll divulge that, to have the opportunity to serve the areas that are not served, that are underserved, and people don't realize there are houses in Rutherford County that are 3 miles from city limits of Murfreesboro that don't have broadband. Broadband is the electricity of 80 years ago when the electric co-ops were being formed. It's a necessity. Kids are going to Crystal and McDonald's to be able to do their homework every night. There are kids that are every night to go to some fast food place just to be able to do their stuff because you can't excel in an educational environment without broadband day. You can't be a successful business. And I think the bill that the governor's going to bring forward is going to be pretty simple, just to give the co-ops the opportunity to provide it. And the AT&Ts and Comcast are going to say, oh, they're going to take our business away from us. But we're just asking to provide service to the people they don't want to provide it to anyway, the areas that's underserved. So personally, I just want to ask you to support that bill when it comes to both the House and Senate because there are people out there that are desperate for this, and it's just really ridiculous. You can go to the McDonald's out here across the VA, and there's probably 6 or 7 kids sitting there right now. Or not. Yeah, school started back today, sitting there right now doing their homework because they can't get broadband at their house. So I'll just ask you to support that when that comes through.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Jordan, I totally agree with you. You know, my constituents are your constituents, and here in Rutherford County, and we do need, and I totally support getting broadband into the rural areas. However, I want to make sure whatever bill comes, and there may be several. I know the governor's going to bring one. I think Senator Bowling from down in Tullahoma, I think she's bringing one. She had one actually last year that she introduced and didn't run it. What I want to make sure is that it's fair and equitable. When I first got elected to the Senate back in '02, I ran into a situation in Lincoln County where they were trying to put in cable inside the city of Fayetteville. And what the utility was doing, the electric utility inside of Fayetteville, to help support and fund their expansion of their cable network, they were taking from the ratepayers. So I want to make sure that whatever language is there, that it sets up a guard in between what ratepayers are paying. Don't go and rob that, because what was happening is in telecommunication industry, the equipment changes so quickly, and broadcasting type equipment, they couldn't keep up. And it got real nasty, and lawsuits and people suing each other and et cetera down in Lincoln County. I want to make sure that if AT&T is a private, yeah, they're huge. So is Comcast and et cetera. Middle Tennessee's not doing too bad in itself, being one of the largest electric cooperatives in the country. But if there's taxes that have to be paid, I think everybody should have to pay those same taxes. And keep that free from the electric, me being one of them, those electric customers for what I'm paying from that standpoint. It's the next big issue is going to come from pole attachments. That's been an issue as long as I've been down there, because some rural cooperatives are gouging many people. I know Comcast has been one of the biggest folks. Senator Tracy, you've seen this as well. There's been a pole attachment bill every year, because some of the electric cooperatives charge as much as $250 a pole just to attach to that pole. The telephone companies only have about 20% of all the poles statewide anymore. Most of them are electric poles. So there needs to be some fair balance for all the consumers across the state, that there needs to be some type of equitable fee being charged by everybody for attaching to that pole. So I just want to make sure between the private sector and the not-for-profit sector, like the cooperatives, that everybody's treated fairly.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, I thought we put the pole attachment to rest last year. I thought that got settled. I didn't think it was coming back in this year, but I think all the co-ops are asking for is to have somewhat of a level playing field with the municipalities, because the municipality can provide cable service today. And so we're just asking for a level playing field. And I didn't mean to cut you off, Commissioner.
And Commissioner Jordan, they can, but when I first got there, I know that Representative Nafee, his district, and then we went from, there were some pilot counties that allowed them to go outside their corporate limits. And I think Morristown was able to do that. Columbia was able to do that down to Cherry Grove, going down towards Mount Pleasant. Now, Senator Bowling had a bill because she had a wealthy constituent who didn't live in her district. He was from Chattanooga, but he was building a real nice high-end subdivision up on top of Mount Eagle Mountain, and he wanted fiber run, and the local community didn't want to run that fiber to that real expensive high-speed fiber. but Chattanooga Power and Water was willing to run it all the way from Chattanooga up to Mont Eagle, and they wanted that permission as well. So it's a little more complicated, and you know, we'll get through that. But I'm with you on getting it out there for these young kids. Absolutely.
I'm going to stand up because I can't see you that far.
Commissioner Reed, I was just going to say this on that. As I've talked to you and Mayor Burgess, that's very important. When I was going door to door during my campaign, probably the number 3 issue people brought up, especially in rural areas, which over half of my district is still rural, was the internet access. And I think everything Senator Ketron said is correct. And if we can work out something equitable so that there's not an unfair advantage, I think everybody can agree at that point. But I thank you also for your comments and telling me about surrounding areas and about in Bedford, Universal and all that. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative, and do appreciate you tonight. And what got me started thinking more on this, I noticed Representative Sparks had this in your hand. There's a good article here. I'd like, if you haven't had the opportunity to read this, and this is our own paper, but and I really appreciate you saying this, that it wanted to be fair. And when I'm saying fair, this has been a real hot topic with me, especially when I was out there in 2014 running, when I'd go into homes and you'd see children sitting there with these hot spots, which I happen to operate on myself. And you see them having to unplug them because they'll be melting trying to get their homework because they just don't do the job. And when we're talking about fair, we've got a group of citizens out there that need to be served that nobody wants to serve. And I'm totally honest with this. Nobody wants to serve them. But we've got cooperatives that do want to serve them. And I think that rather than spending all of our time trying to, everybody dickering over this, I think we get our heads together and get all this fairness taken care of. And take care of what we've got as a problem out there. Because if tonight, if we wasn't talking about broadband, if we were talking about electricity, and we were talking about serving the citizens of this county with electricity, and if we were doing it with the 2 providers we have right now in Rutherford County, Senator and Representative Rudd and myself, we'd have a large percentage of our district out there sitting in the dark tonight because nobody would want to serve them. I sit right now in my house and look out at my house and see one of our providers' cables going out, but they don't allow anybody to hook to them. I get those little mailers in the mail that say, hey, won't you join? Come on. I call them. They say, you're not serviceable. But I can look out there and see nodes, but I'm not serviceable. And besides that, I've got children in my area out there that have to come into Murfreesboro, to McDonald's or whatever, to do their homework. What I'm looking at is a group of people who are missing out. Who are missing out on something that everybody else around here has. And that's what I see. And that's what I'm looking at, is we need to be fair to provide for these people, and we don't need to be holding it up due to the fact that we can't get everybody together on board, whatever. We do have I think one of the best electric cooperatives in the state of Tennessee. They're looking at fiber optic is what they're wanting to do. They have a really nice operation out there that they're needing to look at. They're wanting to run fiber optic out there so they can operate their business with, and while they're doing it, they're going to go out there with, 285 strand fiber optic to do some of this, and while they're doing it, they're going to provide the service too if they can. So what I'm looking at is a way to serve these people that nobody is serving, that need to be served so that we can take care of our education. When somebody wants to file for a job on internet, I don't know, y'all are not having to do this, but if you have to get an application from Medicare, you know you have to go to the internet to get an application. And if you're sitting there on a hotspot, it won't download. So we need to be getting this out here. We call ourselves a progressive county, and when you have Rover and Decent and Unionville, who are over the border across from me, that have internet and have high-speed internet going on, and I have people that are moving from those communities into my district and say they can't get it, it's embarrassing. So that's exactly why I'm saying we need to look at this, and when the legislation comes up, please work it out and help us out.
Representative Sparks.
The Tennessee Magazine, if y'all get this, I always try to read. Mike Knotts has got a great article, Tennessee Magazine here, talking about rural broadband. I'm sure both y'all have read it. And David Callis also. These are good articles. I talked to some folks today. One of my, well, he's not my constituent, I guess he's Will's, your constituent, Baker Rayburn. He stays on me on this all the time about rural broadband. My mother-in-law stays on me all the time. And that's another one of your constituents, by the way, at Weekie Lane. I feel like something's going to get done this year. I think the votes are there. Last year, something interesting happened. I'm on business utilities, and that bill will come through our committee. And someone, I think it was Curtis Halford, Chairman Halford of Agricultural Committee. He had, I believe it was him. He run just a simple resolution. Didn't have a lot of teeth, not a really bill or anything, and it was about rural broadband. And most resolutions, you're just gonna all in favor say aye, and you move on, and you just move on to the next. And I stopped him real quick. I said, "Why is this bill important to you?" And it was really neat because we had a 30-minute discussion about rural broadband, and I watched everybody on that committee, and you could usually tell who's for what just by their body language, and that committee is very receptive. Business utilities, you can watch that discussion back and forth. Randy Boyd, ECD commissioner, as you know, I don't want to say he's a big proponent. I don't want to say take his word out of context, but if his actions are speaking loud words, and it looks to me like he's a proponent, put it that way. Embassy Suites, we're over here at the Rural Ag meeting, and Senator Yeager was there, and chairman of local government, if I'm not mistaken, and I could tell he was for it. And Randy's done a great job, by the way, getting out there, visiting folks in the state. This issue's coming. So if it brings AT&T, Comcast, TDS, and these other telecom industries to the table to improve their game and improve their services, it might get Baker Rayburn off my back, and it might get my mother-in-law off my back. But this issue's coming, so I feel for you. I don't have a lot of rural people, but I do get the phone calls from people that live outside the district.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Allen?
I'm going to stand as well because it is hard to see you all from over here. I'm looking at the 2015 report card for Rutherford County. And so these are just some interesting numbers that I want to share with you. We educate our students at more than $1,100 less per student than the state average. We grew in 4 years, from 2011 to 2015, we grew by 4,300 students. That's 11.4%. That is, for those of you who don't know, that is one elementary school, one middle school, and a high school is what that equates to in those number of students. My request to you is this: as you're calculating the BEP funding, I think it's much more advantageous and much more equitable if you will allot those funds based on the actual number of students that a system has picked up versus a percentage. On the face of it, a percentage and averages seems like that would be the more logical thing to do. The problem is you put together the numbers of teacher to student pupil ratios, and that's exactly how we calculate how many square feet we need per student, how many teachers we need per student, that sort of thing. So we really need for you to think about the actual number of students that are growing in a system, because you might have another system that grew by a higher percentage than us, but they didn't pick up as many students as we did, because as our student population continues to grow, that percentage number may look smaller, but those real bodies in a classroom are going to be more. So that's something that's very important to us that we really need for you to look at. The other thing I want to talk about briefly is the Motlow situation. When Tennessee Promise came about, I think it was one of the single best improvements we made to education in Tennessee ever. There is an unintended consequence to that. Because it's open enrollment, that means that Motlow, any student that qualifies for the Tennessee Promise Scholarship, they cannot turn them away. So they're having classes at 6 a.m. on Sundays. They're squeezing in bodies everywhere that they can. To put the burden back on a community school to be able to raise 10%, which in this case is $2.7 million, is very difficult because what happens is they don't have the same alumni base that an MTSU does. And ideally, many of these students, they will go to a community college and then go on to MTSU because Motlow is their #1 feeder school. When those students graduate, they identify themselves as an MTSU alumni, not so much a Motlow alumni. So the resources that we're pulling from in terms of being able to raise that amount of money is very, very challenging. So what that does is it turns around and it puts the burden back again on that local community because that's who Motlow comes to. They've already come to the county commission. We've given them $405,000. I know they're going to the town of Smyrna. They're going to Chrissy Houston, other places. But my point is, that's when you look at your fiscal notes of the fiscal impact, those are things you don't think about. And so, and again, I don't want you to undo Tennessee Promise one dime. I just need for you to think about the fact that when it comes to these, they need 3 more buildings right now. Their plan is to have 5 buildings on that campus. Right now, they're just trying to raise the money for building number 3. So I promise you, as soon as building number 3 is built, we'll be hearing about the campaign for building number 4. So I really need for you to think about that. Do you have something you want to say? Did you? No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought you were reaching for the. Go ahead.
I was going to wait till you got through.
I was fixing to change gears on you to a different thing, but go ahead and finish. Let's talk about education for a second.
I just wanted to share with you some information that our staffs were able to pull together for us. That this year's allocation for Rutherford County BEP allocation last year was $176 million. This year and fiscal year 17, it's going to be $191,585 million. It's going to be coming in, so we don't know what the governor is going to project in his budget, but I think he's already made the commitment that we'll see a bigger increase. You know, last year you got funding for BEP was increased by $38.8 million to address inflationary growth, plus $19 million for the student enrollment growth. So we'll see what the governor wants to give us this year, but I know it's going to be good. We, across the state, we fully funded, and the General Assembly fully funded the BEP for the first time ever. Teachers got a salary increase. I mean, it's like...
12-month on health insurance.
Yeah, 12-month on health insurance. I mean, it was, as spoke earlier about the governor going down as the educational governor, we in the General Assembly that is our priority. #1 priority in our state is education, and as long as we got excess money, we're going to keep funneling it.
Well, I definitely appreciate all your efforts on that. You know that I do. I try to brag on you frequently for that. There is one problem I'll say is we have a little bit of fuzzy math when we talk about teachers and raises, because what they do is they end up using an entry-level teacher salary to calculate those. And so when teachers hear they're going to get a certain percentage raise, that's what they expect, but that's not the number that's funded.
And we heard that from last year, the fuzzy math, and it's going to. I promise you, the governor, we've kind of pigeonholed the governor on that, and it's going to be 100%. It's not going to be diluted by any means. Whatever those raises are going to be, it's going to be 100% to the teachers.
Of course, we all have had a meeting with the governor and talk about the needs and, the budget, all of us up here. And, I expressed, because Rutherford County is building a school a year. And every county that's touching Davison is, having the same growth problem building the school a year or whatever, but Rutherford County is where my heart is, and so that's what I care about. And so he realizes that, he's willing to acknowledge it, and he says, we're going to try to help those districts out as much as we can without, getting into the small school lawsuit again, so.
One last thing before we leave education that I do want to touch on, and that is the vouchers or charter schools. I really want to have an open mind about this subject, and I have tried to have this conversation with different folks to say, help educate me as to why this is a better system than the one that we have. Because being the chairman of Health and Ed, I see how far we try to stretch absolutely every single penny. One of the numbers that I didn't give you was in terms of our teacher to administrator ratio. We have the lowest. I'm looking at 28 school systems right here. All the biggies you would expect are on this list. We have the lowest of any of those 28 in terms of teacher to student pupil ratio. We have 22.4 administrators for every student. Across the state, you have 13. And so you can't tell me that we're not doing as much as we can trying to get, the money in those classrooms and for those teachers, because I believe that we're doing that. This is my concern with the voucher system you described in Memphis. Unless you have 100% of those students in that failing school opt out, you still have a failing school. So you didn't solve the problem. So all you did was lift money out of the school system and continue to let that school fail, and those children who didn't leave are continuing to fail. So my concern is why aren't we focusing on how do you prevent that school from failing and help all the children, as opposed to just the ones whose parents have the ability to take them to a different school system?
I think not the legislature, but both city and county, the legislature did step in. Senator Norris was involved in that merger between the two school districts in Memphis because not only were the schools failing in Memphis, the system was failing because you had administrators that I think you had over 4,000 cars that were being utilized by Board of Education employees. There were over 5,000 cell phones that were unlimited. So that's what brought about, because whoever was running it from the superintendents and administrations were just out of control and not putting money back into the school system to keep it from failing. They were basically raping those education dollars. And so that's why they merged the two systems. And they talk about lawsuits and everything else, but I think that it's kind of leveled out, and it seems to be working better now. But there were, I think if you removed Shelby County from the grading system that was used, Tennessee schools, we would be in the top 20 percentile in the country if you just removed that one educational system. It was that bad. So hopefully it's on the trend and mending in the right direction now.
Of course.
Also, the thing I forgot to mention just a moment ago is from the ADMs, there's going to be an increase this coming year. Last year you got $41,341,000. Increase for administration is going to $42,570,000 already, and that's what you're guaranteed to get, not what the governor's going to recommend. One thing that I've been pushing for is trying to get more nurses. A few years ago, we mandated that you got to have a nurse in every school, and so what's happening, and because the school systems across the state can't afford enough nurses, and so they're going from one school to another school. They're there one day a week. That was a mandate, and we didn't put any money behind that. So, if we're going to mandate it, we need to be putting money behind it.
You are correct, with the failing schools. Of course, the state is looking, and we have set up the Achievement School District, the ASD, that are taking over a lot of the bottom 5% to give the children in that whole school the ability to have a better education. Of course, vouchers are just one tool in the toolbox. Charter schools are just one tool in the toolbox that we can look at children that are in those failing schools.
My last question, I promise. We brought it up earlier, but I just want to know, I know the two senators specifically, you've been working on some legislation in terms of dealing with elected officials who are under felony indictment. Do you have anything specific that you can share with us about where you're at on that legislation?
Shirley?
I have a question, and then I have a comment about broadband. I proposed a couple of months ago to steering about increasing the requirements in terms of education and experience to run for sheriff in Rutherford County, because I feel that a lack of education and experience was one of the pitfalls that led us to the current situation that we're facing. I did a survey of the top 11 population counties, and Well, if you exclude Davidson, where the sheriff is not the chief law enforcement officer, 9 out of those 10 counties, 9 out of those 11 counties, the sheriffs, the current sitting sheriff has at least 30 years of experience, and most of them have either a master's or a law degree. So that's the kind of education and experience level of our comparable counties compared to Rutherford. So I started out with a 15-year proposal, and some of my fellow commissioners didn't think that would fly, so we've basically narrowed it, cut it down to 7 additional years, or a total of 10 years experience. Do you think that's something that y'all could move forward or not? I know the TSA has a lot of say in it, and I've known the executive director for 40 years, and I know that that's a potential problem and how difficult it was to get the existing.
Yeah, I will, Commissioner, that was the bill that I passed about 7 years ago, upped it 7 or 8 years ago. You know, that was the sponsor of that bill, and that was hard to get through. I mean, really, really hard to get through. So I don't know, to answer your question, what the feeling of the General Assembly is now. I mean, I remember that bill where we bumped them more experience, and Sheriff's Association was behind that bill, but it was difficult to get through then. There may be some things we can work around to require some things, but it'll be difficult. Anytime you change the qualifications to run for elected office, there's a lot of challenges on it.
And I realized that. I had lunch today in downtown Hartsville, the whole county, approximately population 8,000 compared to about 290 here in Rutherford. Total different environment, and I know it's something I think that maybe needs to be begin to take a look at. Maybe a tiered approach for those counties, say over 200, and break it down by 100,000, 250,000, or something like that. But just give it some thought. And the broadband, I wasn't at the meeting today with Middle Tennessee Electric, but I worked for 12 years as a senior engineer for a carrier, and there's a reason that broadband is not out in some of those more rural areas. It's called return on investment. We didn't build in areas that didn't provide a return on investment. The only exception was that is if, say, we had a client with did a lot of business and they had some kind of thing that stood out here by itself, we might go out and do that. But you know, it still got back to return on investment. So I know how much it costs to do that, and I have. The only thing, I welcome your comments about fairness, because I'm not quite in my mind do I have it down where how, and I welcome competition, but I'm not sure how. I know they have the advantage of owning the poles, but how the electric cooperative is going to do it. Once again, they can do it and compete well in an area like Murfreesboro or the population areas, but those very far out last mile people, I question how they're going to do it when other people can't. And so it's there's a lot of questions there.
Commissioner Gurley, that's the exact reason electric co-ops were created 80 years ago. The exact same problem.
Commissioner, I've got a meeting set up, and I'll welcome any members of the, be happy to invite anybody in the delegation if they want to come, but I got a meeting set up with Mike Agee, who is the legislative liaison for the Tennessee Sheriff's Association, and with the director of the Tennessee Sheriff's Association, Terry Ash from Lebanon, former sheriff. They've got some ideas from the association to cover the whole range. Unfortunately, Rutherford County has brought a lot of things to surface for many associations to look at, not just sheriffs, but for all other constitutional officers. They've got some ideas they want to share, and so I'm going to meet with them concerning that, and maybe if the resolutions that you all sent to us to introduce, if we can, if it works out where there's some better language than what you all had sent to us, we'll get back in touch with you and let you know. But you know, at the end of the day, we just want a better system and a better way for the commissions all across the state to be able to control their own destiny as well, you know, through language at the state.
Other commissioners? Mayor? On behalf of the steering committee, we certainly appreciate you sharing your time with us and giving us your ear. We know that you guys work very hard, and Tim, get ready, you're about to be part of it. Again, thank you, congratulations, and we know that you're here for us, and we're here for you guys. At this time, this meeting stands adjourned.